You know, usually I'm not a huge fan of when Hollywood takes a short film and then just makes it into a 2-hour film for no particular reason. But I gotta tell you, with The Invisible Man, they did a wonderful job adapting the 2.5-minute trailer into 2 hours of the exact same stuff.
I don't know what to say.
All right, so this is gonna be kind of tricky. I'm gonna do this review a little bit differently. I'm gonna start with just kind of a general synopsis and what I thought about the movie. I'm gonna get into some critiques that I have that won't have any spoilers. It's pretty much only what you've seen in the trailer. We'll call that the whole movie's in the trailer. And then the third and final component of this will be a little bit of spoiler conversation, just some final thoughts I had on the movie. So there's some timestamps over there, and if it's any longer than 12 minutes, then I am really nervous. First and foremost, The Invisible Man is actually a really, really good movie. It's a very good suspense film, which is, again, different from a horror film in the sense that it's pretty much predicated upon keeping you tense, keeping you in your seat, keeping you nervous, making you wonder what's gonna happen next, and having an antagonist who can be in the room with you without you knowing it is a wonderful setup for that. And in many ways, it was very inspirational to me as a filmmaker to wonder how I would have, shot the film. And typically when that happens, it can take me out of a movie or make me really hypercritical of things I didn't like. But from a director's perspective, Leigh Whannell, I've never really known how to pronounce that name since I saw back in the day. The direction is fantastic in this movie for the most part. I think that the majority of beats are hit appropriately. I think that he gets good performances out of his actors. And I think that the story is paced well with a few exceptions I'll get to at the end of this. Elisabeth Moss is also fantastic. And one thing I want to point out is how great it is to see a movie that really deals with abusive relationships and the way that those things kind of stick with you. I mean, if you've seen the trailer, you realize that the Invisible Man in this is sort of a metaphor for how abuse and trauma sticks with you, except this time it's kind of manifesting itself in this corporeal person. The irony being, of course, being lectured about trauma, abuse, and controlling behavior by a Scientologist. Jesus, I'm so excited I'm sweating. There's no air conditioning in here. This is a horrible, horrible day. So if you're wondering whether or not to go see it, you're on the fence, I think you should. I think it's actually a really good movie. It's a unique take on the Invisible Man story, and I think it's told really well. I think it's very pretty. I think the cinematography is very nice. There were a few things that maybe I would have done from a kind of perspective shift. I think the film does a lot of medium claustrophobic shots, kind of putting you in enclosed spaces. So when you're in the room with Elisabeth Moss, for instance, you're really focusing on specific objects at a time. So a certain shot will be of the chair the guy might be sitting in, or of, the blanket he might be stepping on. And I think for a film like this that really does try to have sort of a slow burn and really does try to make you anxious and paranoid and wonder what's going to happen next or where the bad guy is, I think maybe the film does a little bit too much of kind of pointing you in the direction of the tension as opposed to letting something unfold. So it's one of those dumb things where I said I get really hypercritical about a movie that excites me from a directorial standpoint, and I kind of think this film would have been better suited with more kind of wide shots, almost kind of like a Paranormal Activity, where you're just seeing things happen in the room that you need to pay attention to, and that kind of engross you in the movie. And it could also kind of give you, like we saw with Blake Williams' film Prototype, that weird sensation where you're kind of curious if what you're seeing is actually real or not, or if you're just kind of making things up in your mind. Overall, though, I thought it was a tremendous suspense film. I don't know if I'd watch it again. It would probably take me a while to go back to it, just because, like with good roller coaster movies, I've already been on it, and I don't really see the need to go back to it. But it's something that I'm glad that I experienced, and I think that it brings something new to the table for films like this. Now, this is going to be the second part of this review, where I'm just going to absolutely crap all over the marketing for this film. This is one of the worst marketed films I've ever seen, and it's one thing that I talk about all the time on this show. Do not give away the entirety of the movie in the trailer. Let's play a quick game. Can I completely describe the plot of this film by just saying the phrase, "and then," over and over again?
He was a sociopath. He said that I could never leave him.
And then? But then...
Are you okay?
But then he...
Adrian's dead.
But then...
He said that wherever I went, he would find me. Walk right up to me, and I wouldn't be able to see him.
But then...
He's not dead. He has figured out a way to be invisible.
But then But then
I'm not crazy.
But then
He's in the room right now.
Surprise.
there was one really good moment that wasn't in the trailer, and there's also one really good plot point that's not told in the trailer. But for those two things I could enjoy, there's about a dozen moments for me where I was sitting in the theater and I could recognize the set, I could recognize a prop, I could recognize a costume and go, oh, this is the scene where... It's not enjoyable. It's not a fun experience. And it also, to me, when I watch a trailer for, I think, the Blumhouse trailers for Jordan Peele's movies are always fantastic. It's enough to kind of give you that this is a Twilight Zone episode kind of movie about blank without showing you everything in the movie. It excites you and it lets you still go into it and be surprised by things. I don't know exactly why The Invisible Man was marketed like this, but it really did undercut what is a very interesting and unique take on this story. What does that really mean? It means that, you know, if I think that the movie by itself is an 8 out of 10, for instance, having every single moment spoiled, it destroys that. It dilutes that. So for me, I knew in my heart that I thought it was really good, but I found it very difficult to enjoy because of those marketing decisions. Now, finally, this is the only spoiler part of the review, so if you haven't seen it, thanks a lot. Make sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. If you want to stick around, great. First and foremost, I went to go tell our cameraman, Joe, to go see The Invisible Man. I thought he would enjoy it. He, of course, with me, had watched the trailer, and then he had the twist ending spoiled for him in the first sentence of an article he read about the movie, so he's just totally screwed on this one. But on the subject of that twist, I thought it was actually really interesting. I thought typically having the twist, oh, it was the brother, is kind of tacky, kind of lame. But in this one, it worked for me for some reason. I thought, if anything, it was interesting to have the idea that it's just this pervasive evil of men, not just necessarily her abusive ex. I thought it would have been an interesting way to end the movie where perhaps, you know, she thinks everything is over, and again, you've got a nice kind of wide shot, and kind of like Inception, is the top going to fall over? You'd have, you know, oh, did somebody just sit in that chair? And you'd have some kind of ambiguity to end the movie with. I think it would have really fit the thematics of what they were trying to accomplish. The ending that they go with, the actual ending, the second ending, it kind of felt perfunctory. It felt like we were just trying to go through the motions and really tie a bow on the whole thing. I thought it really killed the pacing of it. I enjoy the ending. I just thought it could have been probably executed better. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think it's a well-directed movie of a very great story that has maybe an underwhelming script. I love everything that is at the core of the movie. I think maybe some of the execution creates some logical inconsistency and loopholes. Like, also, when the detective gets the kicked out of him by an invisible man, when his daughter is being grabbed by an invisible man, and then the next day he's like, well, who knows what the you saw? Could have been anything. No, it was an invisible man. Making a character stupid out of nowhere is not good plot development. And in case you were curious, because now we're into the spoiler discussion, yes, the one moment of the movie that I did absolutely love that was not spoiled in the trailer is when the sister gets absolutely destroyed at that dinner table. What a great shot. What a great moment. It's always difficult when you're talking about moments you love in horror films. Anyway, The Invisible Man. I thought it was really good. It's much better than Hollow Man. But was it better than Hollow Man 2 starring Christian Slater? And did I just make up that there's a Hollow Man 2 starring Christian Slater? Just crazy enough that it could be true.